Okie dokie, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I'm your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names, kicking candy ass, live in a living color here with you only on the graveyard. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're live in a living color here tonight, and we've got a showdown for the ages because this is none other than the Robert Eggars horror film Face Off, baby. Yeah, say it twice, say it 5 times twice, say it in a lighthouse, say it in a witch house, say it in any kind of house you want to say it in. But tonight on Grande's Graveyard, we're talking all things Robert Eggars films versus Robert Eggars films. And of course, you know, I'd be remiss to not introduce, of course, Fighting out of the red corner, of course, that came out in the year 2015. Actually, I saw it in early 2016. This is, of course, his directorial feature debut, the VVitch, or the Witch, however you want to say it. I know that the letter W did not, of course, exist in the English written language at that time, so that's why they ended up doing that kind of artsy fartsy. We'll do the double V, you know, to look like a W. So the VVitch, and then of course from the year 2019, of course, starring Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, the Lighthouse. Yes, the Lighthouse, of course, in the blue corner. So we've got, of course, two heavyweights here: The Witch, the Lighthouse, movies that I absolutely adore, and we're going to decide, of course, which one is the better movie tonight. We've got 8 wonderful categories that I can show you here in advance. We've got, of course, one sheet versus one sheet, a Grande's Graveyard versus episode special, of course, staple here. We have cast versus cast, location versus location, the filming locations of each film, director versus director, writer versus writer, which is pretty interesting because, of course, it's Mr. Eggars versus himself in both categories. So that should be fun. That's a two-parter. Cinematography versus cinematography, and funny enough, both films had the same cinematographer. So again, which one's shot better by the same guy? Horror versus horror. We'll go over some of the scare sequences in both films. Do I think they're good? Do I think they hold up? How do we feel about it? And then, of course, ending versus ending, where we will, of course, crown a winner. Now, of course, there's 8 categories. This could end in a 4-4 tie. I would love to hear from the Graveyard chat on what you guys would pick if you had to pick one of these two movies as the better film, of course. We'll be getting into all that. Now, I'd be remiss to mention that I did do polls on both Instagram and YouTube. On Instagram, the Lighthouse won with a very sexy 69% to 31% of the vote. So thank you for voting on any of my followers on Instagram who picked the Lighthouse to win. However, on the other side of that coin, here on YouTube, right here, only on Grande's Graveyard YouTube page on the community tab, we had a 61% favored for the VVitch. So yes, the VVitch had a 61% favor there. So these two movies are quite split down the middle, it seems. A little over 60% in each platform, whichever one you voted on. I'm sure there were some people that voted on both, but right now it seems pretty split down the middle. So for my live chat, for the chat watching in the replay, if you want to comment down below, let me know your pros and cons, how you'd rank each category. We'll go through them one by one, but I'm very excited to have you here tonight only on the Graveyard. So let's get to the chat, and then we'll get to the movies and categories. We have Miss C here. Ciao, Grande and Graveyardian friends. Welcome, Miss C. Hope all is well with you, my friend. We've got Miss C saying, I probably will just stick to chatting with friends in the chat. I have nothing good to say about either movie, and I was raised, if you can't say nothing nice, keep your trap shut. Well, Miss C, I am one of those people, though, and this channel is a place where I hope that everybody expresses their opinions because, obviously, you know, this is a safe place to do that. And you know what? If you have nothing nice to say, you know, my mother told me, if you have nothing nice to say, come sit by me. So tonight, come sit by me and tell me why you hate these two movies. Don't just go, I hate them. Give me some reasons. Give me some explanation. Give me some education on why you're not a fan of either of the Eggars directorial efforts here. We got the good brother Tom and the Heezy, the Undead of Night. Welcome, Tom. Hope all is well with you. Slasher Fred chimes in. He says, if I froze for a second there, the Lighthouse feels like a callback to the old classic film noir movies because the black and white setting, and it is a very serious movie. It is not like a spoof movie. Absolutely. And of course, what a lot of people, I guess, some people might know this, especially like horror literature fans. This was based on the last thing that Edgar Allan Poe had started to write. Of course, the Lighthouse is the last short story that Edgar Allan Poe had worked on. He, of course, died before he could finish it, and everyone has since tried to kind of put their 2 cents on how the story would have ended, and then, of course, done their own interpretations like this one right here from the year 2019. We got Anthony Chobot does pop culture and openings. Hello, Grande. Work was freaking awesome. Work was freaking awesome. Well, that's great to hear, my friend. Hope all is well with you. Hey, Slasher Fred. I'm up to 1999 and 2000 in my memoirs. My birthday's coming up in 2 weeks. Well, dude, I'm so excited for you, man. Happy early birthday here. What in the name of Robert Eggars is going on here? Mernzy's here. I know Mernzy loves both of these movies, and he's very vocal about his love for these. And I know he and I are very excited for later in the year. Of course, this December, Robert Eggars will add another horror film to the bunch with Nosferatu, his take on Nosferatu, the horror movie that we've been waiting 100 years for, some have said. And I'm really excited for it. I think the trailer kicked ass. I know it has my good friend Bill Skarsgård in it, so I'm not going to speak too soon. But everything else that I saw looked absolutely fantastic. And I really, after watching these two movies again for this week for show prep, I got nothing but faith in Robert Eggars. I think he's just an awesome up-and-comer, and I'm really excited to see what he has to say and do with a period piece like a Nosferatu. Mateo is here. Ciao, Grande. Team Witch here. Hi to the whole chat. Welcome, my friend. Hope all is well with you. That's awesome. We got a Team Witcher here. Hey there. I might have to tune out early since I've yet to see The Lighthouse, but I loved The Witch. Synth, what's up, good brother? Hope all is well with you. We got Murgy saying, hey, what's up, Graveyard fam? Team VVitch over here. Love The Lighthouse as well. Yeah, to me, there's really no going wrong with it. It's very close to me. Like, I rewatch these. I think it's very close, and it's a situation we got to talk this out here tonight. It could very well be a tie. I really think we got to sit down. We got to talk this out, and we got to make up our minds only on the Graveyard. So this is the perfect format to do something like this. This needed a versus. Fine, they both suck in my opinion. It's what I refer to as high art horror, and I'm not a fan. Okay, so just too artsy for you, it sounds like. That's the big flaw here. Oh, Mernzy, I thought you knew I was kidding. Oh my God. Well, people saying hi to one another. Very cool. So, all right, without further ado, cheers and to a safe, happy, healthy weekend on Grande's Graveyard, and we will get this show on the road. Well, I'll take a slug. It's bad. It's bad luck to leave a toast unfinished. Yes, to quote one Willem Dafoe in The Lighthouse. But let's get to the first category. Of course, my Grande's Graveyard staple here. We've done this on every single Versus episode that we've done on Grande's Graveyard. The Witch versus The Lighthouse. We have one sheet versus one sheet, and I guess we could do the brief plot synopsis for both of them too. We'll kill two birds with the one stone. The Vitch. A family in the 1630s New England is torn apart by the forces of witchcraft, black magic, and possession. And then, of course, from 2019, the brief plot synopsis for The Lighthouse. Two lighthouse keepers try to maintain their sanity while living on a remote and mysterious New England island in the 1890s. Awesome little plot synopsis is there. And as for these posters, I think this is actually, it's weird to start on a slam dunk with movies that I consider so close. But for me, I think it's easy to go The Witch here for the original one-sheet poster. I love the ambiance to it. I love that the full moon in the distance. I love the trees. I love the sexy woman silhouette and the kind of dark blue night. The Lighthouse poster is very simple. It almost looks like it's a lazy DVD cover art. Like, I don't know. I wish they could have done something more exotic for this cover. It's not a bad poster per se, but it's really nothing spectacular either. If you're asking me, John Grande, which one of these one sheets would you rather have in your man cave? I'm going The Witch hands down. I think The Witch here is an easy pick for one sheet versus one sheet. I think that it's just a little bit more inviting. It's a little bit more like what's going on here? Like it's very inviting you in, and I kind of like that. The Lighthouse, that could easily be like the poster for a drama. I don't know if I really like that poster. It's like kind of, yeah, I don't know. It's nothing great. I have it here on this, of course, this slipcover here as well. It's simple, but it's fine. So point one quickly is going to go to the Vitch, but what do we think about one sheet versus one sheet? Am I crazy here? Is there anybody that is Team Lighthouse when it comes to poster versus poster? I'm just thinking which poster I'd prefer framed in the movie den. I guess I'll go The Witch as well. Yeah, I would go The Witch as well here. I think it's just, I don't know, it's just a little bit more inviting. Now, I know there is, of course, the alternate poster where it's like, it's this, which I don't like this at all. I think it's just not enough going on. Just the picture Black Phillip. Really, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this. Now Murnsey, I know, has the slipcover. He found the slipcover at Walmart, and he's, why'd you spill your beans, Murnsey? Murnsey spilled his beans to me on that whole situation, but he's got the slipcover. I'm without a slip here. The VVitch takes the one sheet match, and it does the same thing as the trailer. Both leave me expecting a different kind of movie. Okay, that's totally fine. Now, okay, so Tom had chimed into of course, the YouTube community post and let me know that he liked The Lighthouse a lot, but The Witch felt like a movie that was, I guess, mismarketed or falsely advertised. I don't want to take the words out of your mouth, but it sounded like that it was just kind of a movie that you felt you were going to get one thing and you got another. The Witch poster for sure. Okay, so we're all on the same page there. It sounds like. So the VVitch with an early point here as we move down to our next category here, category 2 of 8, cast versus cast. Now we've got some great casts in both these movies. That's the one thing that Robert Eggars, I mean, man, for a first-time filmmaker, for the guy who made his first 2 feature films, and you have these type of casts in both movies respectively, it's absolutely incredible. Of course, it starts here with the witch and the picture of the one big happy family that we watch in the movie. Of course, this was the first leading role and first feature film of Anya Taylor-Joy, who has now kind of become a big star. Like Anya Taylor-Joy, I mean, you think about it, she's in the Mad Max Fury Road as Furiosa. She's Princess Peach in the Mario Brothers movie. She's making multi-$100 million movies that go on to gross hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And she's sort of become a star. I mean, I loved her. To me, her breakout performance is Last Night in Soho. I think she's just absolutely brilliant in that movie. I really like the movie itself, too. I thought she stole it. I really did. Even with her natural singing in the movie, too, I thought they easily could have done have a professional singer dub over her, and they didn't do it. They had her go out there and perform the songs, and I thought she did a great job. I really like Anya Taylor-Joy. Now, I know some people make fun of her and her eyes being far apart, and that is fine, but I do think she's a star. I think she's got some interesting star power, and it's really cool to see how she's kind of grown from this small independent movie that could and kind of has branched this out into becoming somewhat of a megastar. Like, I don't know really, like, name the A-list actresses out there. I think she'd have to be one of them. Like, I think it's similar. I look at her a very similar way, too. I look at Mia Goth. Like, I think Mia Goth is tremendous. I think they both have a unique look. Not anybody really looks like them. They both bring this very strong intensity to their performances. There's nothing else out there like them. And I think that's the best thing you want to be in Hollywood. You don't want to just be another dumb, fake, blonde bitch. Like, basically it's the truth, and while Anya is blonde, she's anything but ordinary. I think that's the beauty of her, and her performance here as the daughter Thomason, of course, as this kind of confused girl who, of course, her and her family are vanished from the village and have to survive on these crops and stuff like this. And I think she does a great job in her performance here, as the family at one point is talking about selling her, and she does these things to try to kind of prevent that. And the mother and her have an interesting relationship where the mother is kind of suspicious of her perhaps being a Wiccan. It's very interesting there. Of course, we have Ralph Ineson playing the father, William. Just a great character actor, man. Ralph Ineson's great. He's like, that's that trademark, like, deep voice. Of course, he would show up. Murnsey pointed out to me, he showed up in the first Omen movie, which just came out this year. He's great in that too. Really like Ralph Ineson as the father. He's great. Kate Dickie as the mother, Catherine. I think she's just brilliant in this. Like, she might be the scariest performance in this entire movie. Like, she's just so callous and like untrusting of her own family. And it all, I think, with the brilliance of it is the way it's all set up. Like, of course, the families vanish from the village. We're never told exactly as to why they get to this. They make their own farm. They're farming their own crops. And of course, it starts with Anya Taylor-Joy playing peekaboo with the little baby. And of course, boo, boo. And then once she looks, the baby's gone. The witch has taken the baby. And it's this one act by the witch 5 minutes into the movie that ultimately starts the proverbial snowball effect of this family slowly but surely over the course of the next 85 of your 90-minute movie crumbling before our eyes. This is really a movie about the dissection and the distortion and the crumbling of a family that was religious, a family that showed love, a family that absolutely on paper, other than being banished from their village, seems ordinary. But, you know, of course, once this act happens and their youngest, their most innocent is taken from them, they all start to kind of feel mass hysteria. And of course, Kate Dickie, as being the motherly figure she is the first one to get there. And man, I think she's fantastic. Like, you really buy when she's breaking down. I think she's just fantastic. I really, really like Kate Dickie in the movie. Of course, I'd be remiss to not mention Harvey Scrimshaw as Caleb, the younger son, not the youngest, but he's actually the oldest son, actually, and he's just great in this. He hadn't had much acting experience, and I know that I read that Ralph Ineson actually had to help direct him because Robert Eggars and him, I guess he couldn't understand Rob Eggars. He couldn't really understand the direction of what he wanted for his character. So Ralph Ineson kind of pointed him in the right direction in scenes and helped direct this kid because he was young, he was green, he was trying to give him a good performance. He does a great job too. Like, that scene where he throws up the apple is just one of the best acted scenes. That whole monologue from him, I was quite impressed with. The two young kids, they're there. They're fine. They're serviceable. There's really not much to run home about with them, but I think they do a serviceable job too. And then, of course, the other hand, these two guys, of course, Rob Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. Now, I was always a big Willem Dafoe guy ever since I saw him as the Green Goblin in the Spider-Man 02 movie in the theater. I just thought he was electric. I thought his intensity, his craziness, his ability to dial it up past 11 all the way to 20 sometimes was just incredible. And it's not just the movies like that, but it's movies like Go-Go Tales. It's movies like Antichrist. So many great Willem Dafoe performances out there. And I was so excited to hear that he was going to be working in a Rob Eggars movie. I was like, oh my God, take my money. I'm so excited. Now, I'd be a hypocrite. I'd be a liar if I told you I was not excited when I heard Rob Pattinson was going to be playing opposite him. And now I am not one to, shy away from this. I'll be the first one to tell you that I was wrong about somebody. I was wrong about something. I was dead wrong about Rob Pattinson. Dead wrong. All caps, dead wrong about Rob Pattinson. I always thought, Cedric Diggory, that's my boy. That's my boy. And of course, the Twilight movies, whether it be Twilight Breaking Wind or freaking Twilight Moon your fucking ass off, or whether it be whatever the ridiculous Twilight movies. I hated those movies when they were coming out. And I was of the age where everyone that you knew was just into them. They were just so popular. And I hated Rob Pattinson for quite a long time. And it wasn't until I saw him in this movie that I realized how ignorant and close-minded I was thinking about him, because Rob Pattinson outshines Willem Dafoe in this movie. And you know how hard that is to do. I don't think it's one of the hardest things to do is to outshine a Willem Dafoe in a movie like this, with all of the dialogue, with all of the hate and the kind of going in. For me to walk out and being like, you know what, the standout of that movie was Robert Pattinson. And I really, ever since this, have been really excited to see his movies. I loved him as the Batman. I loved him in High Life. I loved a lot of his performances that I've seen since, and I've been giving more of his movies a chance. And I like that he's been kind of going out there as his career goes on. You know, he is doing the big budget Batman thing, but he also is doing these kind of smaller A24 or independent pictures or the stuff he does with the Safdie brothers. Just really like his film choices as of late. And I was really impressed with him in this movie, giving, in my opinion, the performance of his career. I think he's Oscar worthy here. I really, really do. I think he could have won an Oscar for this. I know people will laugh, but let's see what the chat has to say before I let you know which one I picked. But we do have Sean, Cinephile Sanity TV, in the house, who had just today posted a community post with the Lighthouse and had no idea that I was doing the show tonight. He was like, dude, what a coincidence. So very cool. Why'd you spill your beans, Shawnee? We got Mateo here saying, I like The Witch better than The Lighthouse, that I consider a good movie. The Witch in 2015 was more needed for horror in that period than The Lighthouse in 2019. Hope I get my point across. That's totally understandable. You feel 2015 was more maybe starving for a horror movie such as it, as opposed to 2019, where, the, I guess, quote unquote elevated stuff had already been coming out and whatever. I kind of hate that elevated term, but I mean, it is a term. People kind of say it. The Lighthouse feels like something out of this old Alfred Hitchcock black and white movies because of the setting. It almost feels like something out of a movie Lifeboat. Totally. This is tough because you have a great group of indie actors at the same time in The Witch, then two massive heavy hitters in The Lighthouse. So if it's down to the cast, I'm going Lighthouse. Mernsey, I think that's a very, very good point. Sad to say, I have to vote cast to The Witch, edging out The Lighthouse because of Black Phillip's performance. Okay, sure. So Black Phillip, the GOAT in this movie, of course, and it is voiced later on by Daniel Malik, who, "Would thou like to live deliciously?" I mean, his voice I thought was tremendous for this. I really, really liked his sinister voice. I thought it was really good. Edgar Allan Poe always had a keen on dealing with suffering and with guilt, like in The Telltale Heart, where the main protagonist hears the heartbeat of his victim and drives him insane. Well, I think, and that's a great point, because I do think that actually comes back into play with this particular movie as well. And we'll get there. Hey, Slash, I love Telltale, one of my favorite Poe tales. Yeah, no, I'm a big Poe guy too. I really like Poe. It was the GOAT was great. Actually, I gotta be honest. I'm gonna have to retract that statement. I'm not the biggest Poe guy. I'm not as well read on Poe as I am on somebody like Lovecraft, or I am on somebody like Stephen King or anything like that, or Clive Barker. Like, I haven't read enough Poe, to be honest with you. So I don't know. I have to retract that statement. So I apologize. But without further ado, what is my pick here? As much as I like the cast in The Witch, I just think you have to go with Dafoe and Pattinson. Really, I mean, for an hour and 45 minutes, they're really the only two guys. I mean, you see a couple of other people. You see the mermaid, which we'll get to when it comes to horror scare sequences. But these guys really carry this movie, and I thought they did such a good job. And I was so happy leaving the theater when I saw this, and impressed by Robert Pattinson's performance. I just thought he was absolutely fantastic in the movie, and I still do. I still think Rob Pattinson was absolutely great in it. So as we're frozen up here, can you all still hear me? Whoa, this just completely froze on me, ladies and gents. What the heck? What the heck happened? Am I still going? I don't have my phone on me. I can't even see. What the heck happened? We're frozen on the graveyard right now. I don't know what the heck happened here. And I can't even see the screen because I'm trying to click off here, but it won't let me. Okay, I think we're good here. We're back. Okay, we're back. I'm sorry. It fucking froze on me for a good minute there. But sorry about that, folks. The point goes to The Lighthouse, God damn it. So we're tied up at 1-1. As we move on to location versus location. Yes, of course, The Witch was shot in Kiosk, Ontario, Canada, whereas The Lighthouse was shot in Nova Scotia. Now, of course, two Canadian shot movies. I know I've given some, I've teased some certain movies like, oh, so-and-so, this movie looks Canadian. It's very Canadian looking. And I'll sometimes say that, like teasing or joking about a film. I think both the locations for these movies are fantastic. Of course, with Kiosk, Ontario, Canada, and the location they picked for The Witch, I thought it was just perfect. Like, I really liked, when they leave this kind of town and they go out and just the entire wood landscape, I just thought was so grand. It was just so foreboding. I was like, man, like anything can happen out there. And I thought it really helped build a nice atmosphere for this particular film. I was quite impressed with the location. I thought it really was a good spot to pick. As far as Nova Scotia, this is, an island. They constructed this lighthouse as it was. I think it took, like a crazy amount of days to construct this particular lighthouse. And, the entire principal photography thing took like 35 days, which is absolutely crazy. But man, no, I thought this location worked really well too. Like, it really feels desolate and isolated and all these things that you want to feel. And of course, when we get to cinematography versus cinematography, we'll get into how these films were shot and stuff like that. But I thought the locations were really, really fantastic in both of these movies. So you guys are saying we're good. We're good. Pattinson was good in the new Batman movie. I agree. I think he's great. Hey, Synth, there is also Batman movie serials where we're in black and white. Okay, no competition here. Lighthouse easily takes location. Really? See, no, I think it's close. I think it's really close here. Because I don't know. I think for me, the witch atmosphere and the entire location itself, I thought was just really like ominous, and I liked the witch's house, like that kind of giant red door, that creepy red door in the wild. I thought that was kind of creepy, man. I don't know if this is so much of a slam dunk. I think it's kind of close. Whereas again, the Lighthouse, it feels very, very claustrophobic, and I don't know. I kind of like both locations of these movies. Anyone else have a take on this, though? Anyone else have a vote to give here on the witch location versus the Lighthouse location? Because I think it's actually quite close. Dominic St. Clair chimes in. What's going on, Dominic? Hope all is well with you. That's a first-time name. Welcome to the graveyard. Love a good folk horror setting. Really got immersed in those woods. Would I have to say the witch for this one? Lighthouse was epic, but a lot of the same spots over and over. Nova Scotia is a beautiful. Oh, dude, yeah, no. I'd be interested to someday. I don't know. I've never really seen much of Kiosk or Nova Scotia other than these movies, but I'd be curious. Kiosk, Ontario is in Algonquin Provincial Park. Beautiful. Go Ontario. So it's good that we have the Canadian gentleman here, because, obviously you guys know this stuff, like the fact I'm sure you guys have been, and that's pretty cool. That's why I'm going to actually have to go with the witch here. I think the witch one I like to think the Lighthouse is just off the coast of a little tall island in Dolores Claiborne. Oh, that's an interesting way of putting it. Totally could see that. The Lighthouse was more claustrophobic. The final witch location was pretty creepy. I agree. I like the great things grow in Ontario. Absolutely. Hey, we'll drink to that. We will drink to that. Cheers to all my Canadian Grande's Graveyard viewers and of course the rest of you. Black and white used to be very popular because back then people didn't have the technology to print them in color of some of those old TV shows and movies that were filmed in black and white. Totally fair enough. But I'm going to point to the witch here. I think that location was awesome. I like the little village, the little of we see of it. And then of course, when we're kind of brought into the woods, I just thought it felt very foreboding and creepy. Dominic St. Clair says the Lighthouse is more claustrophobic. Absolutely. And like I said, we will get there with cinematography versus cinematography as Mateo throws us up a cheers. Hell yeah, man. So as of right now, it's 2-1 in favor of the witch. And yes, it brings us to a two-part category because, of course, this comes from the same mind and director for both films. Of course, Rob Eggars, who I really like. Like I said, I really enjoy these two movies. I have yet to see The Northman. It just was a movie that eluded me. Mernzies told me he's 3 for 3 and that he loved The Northman as well. I have to check out The Northman. That's a movie that unfortunately did not do the greatest financially and probably a big reason why he returned to the genre. And I'm happy he did. To me, when you find a good horror filmmaker nowadays, you want them to stay in the genre as much as possible. So it's like, you know what? Yeah, I'm sad that your passion project bombed, but I'm happy selfishly as a horror movie fan that you're coming back to do something horror related in a Nosferatu. So very excited for that. But as far as director versus director, writer versus writer, I think he does a really good job in both films. Now, as a writer, let's talk about some of the dialogue in these movies. It was, of course, in this particular movie, it's the old folk English, and all the way that these characters talk is in the old school, like, Black Philip, I conjure thee to speak to me. Speak as thou dost speak to Jonas and Mercy. Dost thou understand my English tongue? Answer me. What dost thou want? It's all dialogue like that. And to me, that's got to be really difficult, not only to perform as an actor, for these actors to fluently throw that out there and make it work and make it understandable, I guess, barring subtitles, right? But for, of course, a writer to make it feel that way and to kind of write it on the page for the actor to bring it to life on the screen like that. And I don't know. I thought that was a really cool thing about his movie here. And I'm assuming that's going to be the exact same case when it comes to Nosferatu. And it's definitely the same case here when it comes to this movie and the jargon that they're speaking, if you will. Now, I think as a writer, he does a really good job with this movie in particular, because it's a lot of the writing of it is, like I said, the dysfunction and the crumbling of a family before our eyes. And all of them have their own sins, right? I mean, there's the whole interesting thing where the sister and the brother, they're down by the water and they're collecting crops and stuff. And he's kind of taking a peek at her, an incestuous peek. He's kind of liking his sister because, of course, there's no other girls around his age around. They've been banished from this town. He looks and he's, a young growing boy. He's horny. He's getting there. And, he sees that. And she kind of catches him and, hey, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. They later pay that off in a very interesting scene where, of course, the witch emerges from her house as this beautiful woman with giant yits and almost tempts him in. As a similar vein to, Adam and Eve, the Adam and Eve story where the snake came down for the tree and tempted Eve to bite the apple. This is the same thing where we see this young, horny boy that's kind of hitting puberty, not quite puberty yet, but he's getting there. He's tempted almost to come to the witch. Come, okay, we saw that you looked at your sister that way. Here's this witch that she comes out with giant yits, and he goes running up to her. And the way that I thought Eggars was so smart to pay that off later is he spits up an apple. He spits up, and almost a callback to the temptation of the apple story. There is a lot of like biblical anecdotes in here that are sprinkled throughout it if you really, really know that stuff. Now, I'm not a religious, expert or anything, but you definitely can see that influence here. You totally see it. There's also a great, I thought, brilliant part where Thomasin, the sister, Anya Taylor-Joy, she's talking about like being the witch of the wood, and she's teasing her younger sisters, bothering them, and she goes on this whole rant that actually ends up being the payoff of the movie. I be the witch of the wood. Liar, liar. I am. List not to her mercy. I am that very witch. When I sleep, my spirit slips away from my body and dances naked with the devil. That's how I signed his book. No, he bade me bring him an unbaptized babe. So I stole Sam, gave him to my master, and now I'll make any man or anything else vanish that I like. Like her performance is so good, and I love that that's kind of foreshadowing how this movie wraps up later. Like the whole, like when I sleep, my spirit slips away from my body and dances naked with the devil, and we eventually get that scene that eventually shows. That's great writing, in my opinion. That's very similar to stuff like the Blair Witch Project, where it's of course witch on a witch. They talk in the beginning about the Parr character, Rustin Parr, and how he'd make one kid stand in the corner and he'd kill him, and then he'd kill the other one in the corner. Like that whole spiel that ends up being paid off later in the movie. So it's very like kind of ahead of itself writing that I thought was quite brilliant here. There was a lot of that in this, and I thought some of the father's dialogue of being regretful and feeling that he failed his family, I thought it was quite heart-wrenching. I liked the writing a lot here. I thought this was a really well written movie. I thought it was really thought-provoking and really interesting to see kind of how he was able to do this. And then, of course, this movie, I would say it's definitely more quotable, more one-liners, like the great scene where you fond of me lobster, ain't ye? I seen it. You're fond of me lobster. Say it. I don't have to say nothing. Damn ye, let Neptune strike ye, dead Winslow. Hark! And he goes on the entire spiel of bellow, bid our father, the sea king, rise from the depths, full foul his fury. He goes on and on and on, and just at the end of it, all right, have it your way. I like cooking. Like the way that's all done, I thought was brilliant, man. And the classic, why'd you spill your beans, Tommy? Like it's just so. Oh man, I love that stuff. And of course, the whole spiel to me, that the best scene, Rob Pattinson, if you ever really want to watch Rob Pattinson at his best, it's this particular scene towards the end where he says that he's free from Willem Dafoe's design. You made him mad with that charm. Now I'm free from all your designs. I've got it all figured out, except for the secret mischief you're keeping up there. Like, just Jesus, Marion, Joseph, Tommy. Like, I just really, really like the one-liners in this. It's very, very quotable. Monkey pump. I think this is a more fun to quote movie. Like, me and my friends will always throw out the "Ye fond of me lobster." Like, it's just so funny. And it's well written. It is really well written too. I think there's a lot to dissect here when we'll get into horror versus horror, which is one of the bigger categories. So I want to save some of that stuff for that. But I do think it's well written too. And I think that the dialogue, while it's crazier, while it's kind of dialed up and it's a little bit more fun, a little bit more entertaining, I definitely think it's well written too. But again, you know what? Again, I'm going to go writer versus writer. Go with The Witch. I think The Witch has the better written story of the two. So 3-1 for The Witch right now. As, of course, as I said, this is a two-parter, but we will get into comments before we get director versus director. Let's see. I think we were here. One of the 1990s movies that deals with the Salem witch trials is the movie The Crucible, of course. Northman is really wild. Never seen it. I think he's one of the best directors making movies right now. I'd agree. The Northman was insanely good. Wouldn't be surprised if Nosferatu gets a couple Oscar nods, especially in the costume set design. Absolutely. I hope it does too. Agree with you 100%, Mernsey. The language in which reminds me of King James Bible translation, very old-fashioned way of speaking. Wow, that would have been crazy if the witch had, at the end of Blair Witch, was the... Yes, a lot of witches there. But yes, no, yeah. I always liked that. I thought that was kind of smart how they planted that seed like a half hour in, and that's how the movie gets paid off. I don't know. I like writing like that. But as far as director versus director, to me, this is really, really hard as well, because I really think he directs both movies quite well. I think this one is very much more of your horror of the two. Like, it's definitely more of a standard horror movie. Like, it very much in a way that The Shining feels sometimes, with how it's trying to divulge its scare sequences. And we'll get into, like I said, the scare sequences when it's horror versus horror. But I think he does a really good job directing this movie, considering his directorial debut. I thought he nailed it. But it was really, really, really drab and like dark, and the tone was all there. It never changes tone. There's not a laugh to be had in The Witch. Like, it's just drab the whole way through. It's really, really, really dark, and effectively so. This one, though, I think is the better directed of the two. I really think this is a better movie from a directorial standpoint, because it's just so much more. You could see how much he grew. Like, in this 4-year period, he had a little bit more money to work with here. Some of the way that he has the cinematographer move the camera, we'll get into cinematography, just incredible. And the aura that this movie feels. And another thing that I thought was incredible was that this movie, while it does have the horror aspect, and I do believe it to be a horror movie, it also feels like it's dabbing into so many different genres. There's drama here. There's comedy here. There's like fantasy elements in this movie. There's so many things, I think, that he brought to the table as a director here, and was able to tackle so much. And I know he said in an interview, after this movie, I felt that, like, I thought I was going to go through it all again with this and make it a very, like, dreary horror film. Whereas with this, he's like, I wanted to have a little bit more fun, make it a little bit more exciting and out there. And I think that shows. I think playing a little bit with the tone, but not going full on comedy or going full on goofball, was really, really bold choice. And I think it really worked. So for me, the better directed of the two, the more sharper and slicker looking movie, is The Lighthouse. I'm going with this one without a doubt. I really like that one. So we're currently at 3-2, but let's check the comments. Let's see what y'all have to say. One of the classic black and white movies is The Maltese Falcon. You really feel the suspense in the movie as Sam Spade realizes that there is a connection between the murder of his partner and the statue. Grief World. Hey, Grande, it's Nate, and everyone can't stay long. I just wanted to pop in and say hello. Also a huge fan of both films. The Witch is my favorite comment, but it's not letting me. Does Eggars do commentaries on his releases? Yes, there's commentaries on both of these bad boys. People saying hi, peace. Awesome, awesome, man. Which, of course, brings me to cinematography versus cinematography. Now, these are both actually, funny enough, shot by the same cinematographer as well, Jaron Blaschke, who does The Witch and The Lighthouse here. Now, I think this one's a slam dunk. Whereas The Witch was shot with the, I believe it's 188 aspect ratio. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's because they wanted to use they wanted to make it like condensed, but not too condensed. So they did the 188 instead of the classic ratio. Whereas this, they went to the old school, like pushing it in, like the 4:3 aspect ratio to really like drive home the, I guess, claustrophobia that this movie is trying to present to you. And it's incredibly done. It's really, really effective in its claustrophobia. And even though you're pushing the screen in like this, you're still treated to so many interesting shots. Like I love so many different shots of the lighthouse itself. I thought were really impressive. I thought there were some really interesting shots of Pattinson being lowered down on the lighthouse itself where he's trying to paint it. I thought that was a really fascinating shot. I thought some of the shots of the water, shots of Pattinson going into the water and kind of finding something, the way it was all lit. I just thought it was incredible looking film. And this is the Blu-ray here. I do know there is a 4K for anyone that is out there and collects. It's just a spectacle of a movie. And crazy enough, was nominated for an Oscar, the cinematography. That's how good this was. And I just think the cinematography is incredible here. So I really, really, really like the cinematography in The Lighthouse. I do think it's good in The Witch too. Don't get me wrong. I will say the film feels a little bit colorless at times. Like there's a little bit of that gray look, and I don't know if it works the greatest. Now, I personally think that that's probably what they were going for to convey the tone and the message and the themes of this movie, to make it as dark and gray and drab as you can, like looking wise. Obviously, I may have wanted to see a little bit more color, but I do think that the movie works on its own two legs. I just felt that, this movie going for the full black and white choice was a smarter move. Like, okay, if we're gonna gray down the color, I'd rather you just take it all out and let's see what scope you have. Let's see what scope you could play with. And man, the cinematography in this movie is just top notch. One of the best shot movies you can watch out there. To me, it's The Lighthouse. Just gorgeous, gorgeous looking movie. Kind of like that movie, The Artist, which pays an homage to those classic silent movies that was filmed in 1.33 widescreen. That's right. Yeah. Now I can get the exact, I actually really want to, because it's bothering me now. I want to see the exact term here, because I'm usually like have this stuff off the top of my head, but it slipped me. The Lighthouse aspect ratio, because I want to get this right here, folks. This was the Lighthouse aspect ratio, if this ever loads, was a 119. That's a 119 aspect ratio. So it has these black bars on the side to kind of convey the claustrophobia of the movie. And I thought that really, really, really worked. Like I thought it was really effective in the story that this particular movie was trying to tell. As far as The Witch, it was 166 aspect ratio, which is condensed, but not the same way. It's still open enough so you can breathe a little bit. There's a little bit more room to breathe. So that ties it up though at 3-up. 3-up going to, in my opinion, the most important of the two, probably the most important of all 8 categories when we're talking about a horror movie face-off. The horror versus horror of both of these movies. God damn it. Wow. Just incredible. I mean, I really like the horror in both of these movies, and we could run through some scare sequences here with both. Now, of course, The Witch, I think, is definitely more of your straight up horror movie. So you have a lot more straight up horror sequences. For example, there's the great scene where the mother is just completely beside herself. She's really like lost it mentally, and she's just breaking down and crying in her room. All of a sudden, she imagines the baby in her arms and the other son that's passed away by this point in the room, kind of smiling, looking at her. So in her kind of fantasy, in her fable, fiction, whatever you want to call it, she's enjoying this, like, oh my God, this is what I've been yearning for and missing all this time. And she starts to breastfeed one of the baby, and she's looking at the other son just kind of in a trance. She looks very at peace and very happy. Whereas that's what she's seeing or hallucinating or imagining. But what was really happening is she's actually getting her nipple bit on by like this crow. It's pecking on her nipple, like biting. Really disturbing. I was like, holy moly, like that is absolutely horrifying stuff. Like that was a really, really great sequence of horror. There's of course the great scene where I was saying before, the young boy, he goes out hunting in the woods to try to help and provide for the family on his own. He gets separated from his sister, and of course he comes across the witch's house. And I loved how the cinematography and the direction here, it was all slowed down. It's kind of in slow motion, it feels like, as the door opens and we see the witch appear. And she's, like I said, this beautiful lady, beautiful cleavage, just absolute gorgeous lady. And she kind of comes up to the boy and goes for a kiss. And of course she does kiss him, but you see the back of her hand on his head, and it's this disfigured, old, grimy hand. So we know that this witch is up to no good. I was like, man, that was effective. Like I liked that. Like you lured this kid in. You've been watching him. You know what's going to lure him into you, because he's not a dumb kid. He knows better, but you use his one weakest against him, and that's pretty horrific. Of course, the peekaboo scene with the baby, just the ultimate, like, oh my God, like I just lost my baby brother. Like it's gone, all because we were playing this game of peekaboo. Really crazy. I don't know. I thought a lot of the sequences of horror in this worked. And of course, the horrors of the family meltdown and that entire scene where the brother comes back after being lost forever, it seemed like. And then, oh my God, oh, lay him down, lay him down. He lets this big kind of spiel out, and they're yelling at all the kids, pray, pray, use thy prayer. And they're yelling at the kids to pray. And the two youngest can't do it. They can't get their prayer out. And that's an old New England folklore that if you were, studying witchcraft or looking into it or trying to become, a witch, that if you were doing that, you couldn't be able to say your prayers. Like it would interfere with you finishing the prayer of the Lord. So the kids, they kind of fall over in pain and like roll on their sides, and they're blaming Anya Taylor-Joy. It is she's not letting us. They're in all this pain. They can't say the prayer. And while that's happening, the look on the mother's face, she's just like, oh my God, they're here, but they're gone. Like everybody's gone. I've lost everything now. Like she's just like completely beside herself, man. I thought that was so really disturbing, man. Really disturbing. And then how basically this all plays out, where it gets to the point where there's such a lack of trust, they decide we're going to lock these kids and everything in this barn with Black Phillip, with the cows, with the goat, with the animals and stuff. And of course they're locked in there overnight, and you just see this, like, it looks like an old woman, this old woman with like scratches on her back kind of turn. And that, when I first saw it in the theater, I jumped. I was like, oh shit. Like I thought that was just absolutely brilliant. And then as far as this family crumples, the whole horror of that, when they all start killing each other off, basically. Like the mother goes after the daughter and, I love thee, mom. And then boom, stabs her own mother, has to kill her own mother because her mother's going to kill her. She's completely lost trust and faith in her daughter. And I think there's a lot of horror in that too. Human horror, family horror, different type of stuff. Whereas the horror in the Lighthouse, I think has a lot to say about identity and a lot about, there's so many different themes going on here. And I think that even this is a movie I've seen 4 or 5 times now. I still don't know entirely what's going on for a fact here. Like this, it's the destruction of a family. With this, there's so much going on that it's just so hard to tackle everything, really. Well, of course, we have Thomas Wake, and then Ephraim Winslow, or so he says. These two guys, it's bad luck to leave a toast unfinished. It's bad luck to kill a seabird. These great, scenes of the two of them sitting at the dinner table together, and they use that bright light, and the two actors said they couldn't even see each other. It was so bright in the room, which I thought was really crazy, especially upon a rewatch. I'm like, they can't see each other right now. Crazy. The whole story where, the two of them get drunk quite a bit. They're starting to lose their sanity. They're slowly but surely kind of going insane. And the whole story that Winslow tells about this other guy that he had worked with and let drown. And his name was really Ephraim Winslow. And that Rob Pattinson's character is named Thomas Howard. And he says this whole story, it's really sad. He's like, yeah, I let him drown. And I decided I'd take his name because it was more noble, and I'm hiding as his identity now. It's almost as if, going back to the old Poe theme that Slasher Fred had mentioned before, it's his guilt. It's the guilt of letting that one person die that has kind of driven him away from the real world. It's driven him out to sea to collect money. It's driven him away from, being Thomas Howard and trying to be Ephraim Winslow, this other identity. I think it's a lot to say about the horrors of identity and identity crisis within oneself. But I also think there's so much more there. Of course, there's the great scene that I've highlighted here where there's this mermaid that washes up upon shore. And Rob Pattinson runs over to it and clears the seaweed and tumbleweed and all these things from her face. And he, for a minute, wants to have sex with her. And he looks like he's interested. And then she kind of awakens from it and starts laughing at him. And it's this screeching siren sounds that we hear as the viewer as he just kind of runs away. I thought that was so effective. I was like, damn, like, what is going on here? Of course, some of the sequences where he is so curious of what is in the light. And of course, Defoe has the great line that his ex, mate found enchantment in the light and he went mad. And he's trying to kind of watch through the gates of what's going on up there, what Defoe is doing. We see tentacles and slime, and we get the idea that maybe Willem Dafoe is getting some sort of sexual enhancing enchantment, from this light itself. We don't know exactly. It's never quite shown, but it's very much implied. So what is going on up there? I don't know. It's very much up to your interpretation. And I think horror like that is really cool. It definitely does have the Lovecraftian vibe with that, with some of the visuals in it. But I think it also has the whole thing saying about identity. And I think that also sexual frustration plays a part into that. I think there's also the horrors of isolationism in this. And it's just so really well-rounded. I love how well-rounded this movie is with all that it has to say about horror. They're great choices. They're really both great choices when it comes to this. But I'm very curious to see what the chat has to say about this. Let's see. The Lighthouse black and white cinematography looks like March and April in Atlantic Canada. Feels like spring will never come. Oh boy. Now I know for sure I was bored watching The Witch because I don't remember the yits. Oh, they were popping out. I mean, you don't see the yitty part, but you see there's plenty of boobs. I mean, it's giant boobs. In the opening Night of the Creeps, it pays homage to those black and white scenes. Yes, that's absolutely true. Yeah, and I could show this lady, yeah, they kind of popped her boobs out here, which I thought was funny. I'm gonna go watch The Witch for horror just because of that witch stealing the baby scene and wandering around the forest in that red cloak. So fucking creepy. Then making the baby stew. Yeah, the whole idea of using this baby as like flying ointment, because that's again another like witch folklore where witches would steal babies in order to use this like ointment so they could fly. They'd put it on their broom and rub it all over their bodies so they could fly around, Massachusetts. And I thought that was really, I was like, damn, like that is so crazy that they like opening 5 minutes, they've killed the baby. Like that's really crazy. Lighthouse has a ton more weird imagery and a lot of metaphors in it, creepy shit. I don't think The Lighthouse as a horror story. I thought it was a story telling of the true Smalls Lighthouse tragedy with some Lovecraft overtones. Totally agree with that. I think that's a fair statement. I think it's a horror movie, but it's also so much more in a lot of ways. I would have to go though with The Witch here. I think The Witch is definitely the winner of horror versus horror. I think they both have a lot to compete with here. But I definitely think that we're going to go with The Witch on this one. So yeah, The Witch goes over and it leads 4-3 going into the 8th and final category. Can The Lighthouse tie it up, or will The Witch succeed as we get to ending versus ending? Very similar endings here. Of course, we have Anya Taylor-Joy on the left, laughing and finally embracing the darkness. And of course, Rob Pattinson on the right, finding the enchantment in the light, if you will. To me, this is as good as two endings can be with a horror movie. And I mean, I really like both. Of course, like I was saying with this, the family, it's a 90-minute crumbling of this family. They've all turned on each other. Black Phillip kills the father in a violent scene, and he kind of lets out this, I regret this. This is all my fault. He puts all the blame on himself. The mother is murdered by the daughter, and Anya Taylor-Joy is left with nothing. She just goes to sleep on the table where's my life now? My whole family is dead. I'm banished from this village. There's nothing I can do. I'm afraid. I'm cold. I'm hunted. What am I going to do? So she decides to go to the barn and confront Black Phillip and open his book and sign to become a part of his Wiccan coven. And of course, she's speak to me like thou speaks to my brother and sister. And then you get the classic line, Black Phillip, I conjure thee to speak to me. What dost thou want? What can thou give? Would thou like the taste of butter? A pretty dress? Would thou like to live deliciously? Would thou like to see the world? Like, he starts promising her all of these things. I'll give you butter. I'll give you a pretty dress. I'll let you live deliciously. I'll let you be a queen now that it's all gone. Your entire livelihood and what you were today is gone. Now there only is coming and joining with me if you want it tomorrow. And I think there's a lot of darkness in that. And I like how the whole scene is kind of portrayed. And she doesn't look like she wants to do this, but she has to at the same time. And it's this uncomfortability and the whole, would thou like to live deliciously? I will, you killed your mother, you've broken away from them, you've shown that you can kill. Now you can be with one of us. And he has her, sign, and I will guide thy hand. And she signs in the book. And the last scene you see is her stripping down, walking into the forest and joining the witch coven and descending into the sky like she said she would earlier. When I sleep, my naked body dances with the devil. We're dancing with Black Phillip as we've, gone from this, kind of daughter character, this character that was good to her whole family, her siblings especially, was scared that she was going to be banished from them and ends up being gone from them anyway because of their destruction. And ends up joining this coven and throwing up the arms and laughing like, all right, this is it. I'm living deliciously now. Where on the other side of that coin, you have the Lighthouse, this ending where, of course, like I was saying before, a movie that talks about so many different particular themes that I don't know if I quite get them all. And I don't know if I'll ever quite get them all. I think there's so much there to dissect, and that's what makes it fun. Of course, I tell the story that, Tom Howard and Ephraim Winslow. Which one is he? What's his identity? Is he running away from a past life? I think in a way, both of them are. I think Willem Dafoe, 13 Christmases at Sea, she couldn't see past it. He talks about his wife and how his wife and kids, he lost them basically. And, his leg is destroyed because of, he says at one point he broke it. He says at one point it's scurvy. There's a lot of different stories and ideologies. And he even brings up, how long have we been on this rock? 5 weeks? 2 days? It seems like quite some time. Maybe I'm a figment of your imagination. It gets into all that. Are we all hallucinating this? Is this all an imagination on this lighthouse? Is it all a dream? Is it all hallucination? Is it all, what is it? Is it a fever dream? I don't know. I don't quite know what to make of it. But I do know what to make of the ending where Rob Pattinson the entire time is, let me see the keys to the light. Like, I want to see the light. I want to go up there. No, I'm the keeper of the light. And we had heard the story earlier of Defoe's partner seeing the enchantment and going mad in the light. Pattinson, of course, finally snaps and decides, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to bury this guy so I can go up there and see the mischief secret he's been hiding. And basically kills Willem Dafoe's character, gets the keys, and starts the slow descent up the lighthouse stairs to see the light. And it just all happens so magically to me. I love that last scene of the movie. It just completely, for the first time I saw it, I was like, this is why I love movies. Like that entire finale where he goes up, opens, there's no dialogue. He's just literally in amazement and kind of reaches in as the lighthouse opens its light and lets his hand in. He puts his hand down and starts laughing too, as you'll see right here. He's laughing and enjoying the light until he stops, until he's not anymore. And then all of a sudden, the enjoyment, the happiness turns into an overly concerned look where he kind of falls down the lighthouse steps, and he's left on the beach with all of his internal organs showing out and these seagulls picking on him. Really crazy ending. Now, there's a lot there. There's so much there. The whole thing with, a wiki that meets their fate, that meets their maker, is destined to return as a seabird. Hence why Willem Dafoe says, don't mess with a seabird. And of course, there's this one seabird that's messing with him the entire time until Pattinson just kills it. And what that seabird was Dafoe's old partner who he let drown. So both these guys are no saints. Both these guys are literally responsible for letting their partners before each other die. Really crazy. And I think that it's the guilt is what he sees in the light. It's at first enchantment. It's at first that appeasement of his sexual frustrations. And I know there's some people that think there could be a homosexual thing with he and Dafoe. I never saw that personally. I've just rewatched it. I don't really see that, but I know there's a lot of people that do. So if that's the case, maybe you see that here as well. I see sexual frustration. I see him, I'm so excited. I'm happy. I'm okay to finally be who I am, until he looks a little bit deeper, until he sees his true identity, his true self, his true identity in the lighthouse itself. And this is what horrifies him until he flies back down the steps and meets his maker and is ultimately destined to become the very thing that he was annoyed by in a seagull, another seagull, after he's being pecked upon, eaten away. He's destined to become one of these things as the lighthouse kind of fades to black. To me, one of my favorite endings ever. Just great. It's so open to interpretation. That's how I interpret it. I know there's a lot of other people that have a lot of other interpretations. A lot of people bring Greek mythology into it. That's totally cool. That's totally fine. That's probably more along the lines of what Eggars was going for. I just see this movie as the horrors of identity, and that's the particular moment where it pays off. It's his guilt that I feel like he sees, and ultimately it frightens him, and he kind of flies back down the steps. It's one of my favorite scenes in horror the past few years or ever, is Rob Pattinson climbing the stairs to the lighthouse and seeing and finding his identity and being horrified by it. At first, the excitement and then the death. Great. Just great stuff for me. While I think this is a great ending, I just think this is a perfect ending. I love this ending. And this forces the tie. 4-4 is the score. Let's go to the chat here. I really want to see what you guys have to say about ending versus ending. Nobody said much about ending versus ending. Okay, the freak nasty sex stuff at the lighthouse I can do without. Fair enough. One of the classic things that a lot of these old film noir used were the Venetian blinds. Okay, fair enough. Anyone else want to chime in on ending versus ending? Does anyone have an ending they prefer here? Because I went Team Lighthouse with the ending, and it forces the tie. So we're going to have to do a tiebreaker of some sort to break this tie and pick which is the better Eggar movie of the three, or the two, I guess. So that's going to be fun. But no one has said a word about the ending versus ending. So interesting. I don't know. Maybe you guys are torn too. I'm not sure. But yeah, no, I had to go Lighthouse here. I thought the ending was just so good. But I guess we can get into the tiebreaker and how we're going to do this. So this is tough. Sometimes you go rewatchability. Sometimes you go like, what is subjectively the better movie? It's hard, but I guess because it's my personal versus, I'll just go personally which one I would prefer to watch over the other. The Lighthouse, although The Witch had a good ending too. Okay, so definitely, okay, Tom is Team Lighthouse with the ending. I love both these movies. It's really hard for me to pick, and it's really kind of calling it on the spot here. But you know what? I think while I think one is a really, really great movie in and of its own way, I think The Lighthouse is the movie that I'd have to go with. I think this is the better movie. I think it's so close to me, but I think I like this one personally a little bit more. I think there's a little bit more there to dissect. I think it has the great Oscar-worthy performance from Pattinson. Of course, it is Dafoe chewing up scenery. It has all of these themes. Every time I watch it, there's something more for me to look for. Like, it's really, really, really three-dimensional. Whereas this, I think it's a fantastic horror story. I think it's really, really well told. I love the gothic Victorian, old school folk horror vibe that it gives off. And I think it's a damn good vibe at that. I really enjoy this movie every time I watch it. I think this is definitely the quicker watch. It's probably 15 minutes shorter. It definitely has a decent enough pace. Some people have said that it's a little bit too slow. That's fine. I don't know. I still really like this movie, but for me, I think Team Lighthouse. I think The Lighthouse is the better movie of the two. Really enjoy both, though. I would just say I have rewatched this a lot since I've seen it since the initial screening in the theater, and I was blown away every single time. Really, really love The Lighthouse. Both great movies, though. I'm glad it's the ending of talking about these two strange ass movies. All right. I guess I'll witch again. I like the ladies floating at the end. The Lighthouse, very open to interpretation, which I enjoy as well, but just preference. Dude, no, totally. I think, like, I've heard so many people interpret the ending of it that I'm like, oh man, like, I think that's what I like about this movie too. There is no definitive, it was trying to say this. No, it's up to you. I love movies like that. I love when you pass the ball to me and, all right, John, you fill in the blank yourself. Use your own brain. How did this horror play out? How did the rest of this, what happened up there? What was in the light? What did he see? What scared him? What pushed him away? And I do think it was guilt. I think it was really guilt of who he truly was at the soul and heart of his identity. And I liked that. I thought that was really cool. Woohoo, Lighthouse for the win. There can be only one. There can be only one. But yeah, after 8 categories, it was 4-4, and the Lighthouse gets the slight edge here. I think the Lighthouse is a little bit better. Check out The Northman. I think you'll be impressed. Very different to the films discussed tonight, but still holds that Eggars craft. Dude, yeah, no, I've had it to watch for a long time. I'm thinking before Nosferatu, I'm going to do like a marathon. Like I'll watch these two and then I'll watch The Northman finally. Because I've been meaning to. It just has eluded me. Both movies are good. No grudge for Lighthouse winning. Kudos to Eggars either way. I agree. I think he's a damn good filmmaker. I think we can all agree that he has promise and he's really good. Like there's a lot of up-and-comers around the pike right now. Eggars is just one that really excites me. Now, have I heard people bury the guy? Absolutely. I've heard some people say he's one of the worst. I don't see that. I think he's great. I know the big knock is, do something modern day. Like he always wants to do something from either the 1890s or the 1630s, or Nosferatu is going to be very similar in that ballpark. Like he doesn't do anything modern day, but I think he does a good job in like creating a world. And I think that doing them as period pieces or old school films really helps him create that. And that's what really makes me excited for, of course, Nosferatu. I think it's really, really going to be an exciting time when that movie is coming out. So I'm very excited for that. I really like him as a filmmaker. I hope he stays with the Lighthouse tone for Nosferatu. That's going to be interesting. I don't know. Because, like, I could see him easily going back to the complete, but like this is really more of a straight up, like the tone is the same. Whereas there's a couple of farts in there. There's a couple of, all right, if I had a steak, I'd fuck it. And the whole, you ain't fond of me lobster, hark, monkey pump. There's some laughs in here. There's definitely some laughs. I don't know if they're going to do that for Nosferatu, but I'd be all for it. I really would be all for it. I think a little bit of levity, a little bit of, escapism from the serious tone, as long as you don't go too far. I think that's what a lot of these filmmakers do. They go so far in the goof direction that you lose the tone of it being a seriously good horror movie. That to me happens quite a bit. And that's like a big reason a lot of people, and I know Tom would agree with me on this, is the whole Hatchet thing. I never liked Hatchet. I don't like the tone. I think it's just, it feels like a scary movie more so than it feels like a scary slasher movie, an old school American horror, like he said he was going to do. That's, to me, where the disconnect is. So you can have a laugh. You can have a few laughs, as long as the meat and potatoes around it are still serious and have something else to say and are still showing those themes of horror, in my opinion. Awesome show, despite it being two of my unfavorite movies. I would love to hear why. You just said they were too artsy. Was there any more to why you hate? You hate these two, but I'd love to know why. Agree, a little touch of humor to lighten the mood, not ruin it. Exactly. Like there's certain, it's a fine line, and it is very hard to not cross it, I suppose. But man, when it's done right, like here, I think it's done masterfully. I don't know. I really do. That's just me. So yeah, that is what it is. As the Lighthouse prevails, Rob Pattinson laughing all the way to the winner's window, if you will. Of course, next week on Grande's Graveyard, it is the Alien franchise, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to be excited for. Tomorrow, I'm going to see the new one, Alien Romulus, I guess. And then we'll be discussing Alien, Aliens, Alien Cubed, Alien Resurrection. We're skipping over the AVP movies. So if you want to hear me discuss those, unfortunately, I'm not going to be discussing AVP 1 or AVPR. Sorry, I just really don't want to. And I don't have time or the patience or the desire to go back and watch either of the AVP movies. So I'm good on that. But I will be covering Prometheus, Alien Covenant, and of course, the brand new Alien Romulus, which I will be seeing tomorrow night, which I know Mernsy's excited for. He's the biggest Alien fan I know. I've actually already started watching the movies. I watched Prometheus and Alien Covenant over again just the past couple of nights. And of course, I'm preparing for the show next week during the week. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So if you want to join me for that, feel free. But if you're catching the replay of this, absolutely comment down below. Let me know which one you like or prefer of these two Eggars movies, The Witch or The Lighthouse. And of course, if you want to give your scores of what you would give each round and which one would win the point, totally feel free to do that. I appreciate everybody that was in the chat tonight. It was a lot of fun. A shorter episode of the show, but definitely fun as always. I like doing these. These are definitely fun to do. And two movies that I felt like I really needed to discuss. I really haven't discussed enough of these on the Graveyard. I think I talked about them once years ago on Explorer of Horrors channel. So that is what it is. Always a good time on the Graveyard. Whilst thou have a terrific night. Of course, Mernsy. Would thou like to live deliciously? I think so. And why'd you spill your beans, Mernsy? But yeah, everybody, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind support. I'll be releasing the September schedule shortly, another week or so. That I'll be releasing those. So that should be a lot of fun. I've got September, of course. And then, of course, we also have to preview Neo Horror special at the end of the month. Where we'll be talking I Know What You Did Last Summer, The Faculty, and the fan-voted Soul Survivors, which, holy shit, that's going to be Rant of the Year. I'm going to tell you right now. Soul Survivors is going to be Grande's Graveyard Rant of the Year. There's no doubt about it. They're just too stupid, too old-fashioned, not sure what else to say about them. Okay, fair enough. Would you have liked Hereditary if it had Old English dialogue? I don't know. I thought Hereditary was just a mess. I didn't. It's hard to explain. With a lot of people with that movie, they tell you how scared it made them feel. I never felt that. I just thought it at a point was just so over the top and out there that it was just silly. Like the kid at the end with the Burger King crown and the old ladies laughing in the attic. I just didn't find that. Some people were like, that's the scariest thing I ever saw. Or Toni Collette bashing her head on the fucking ceiling in fast motion. Some people were literally gripping their chair. I just didn't. I thought it was kind of silly. It was like, this is too much. Like, I just didn't. I don't know. It's funny. That's a big reason why I don't like Hereditary is the tone. I just didn't feel that horror that other people did. I thought it was honestly laughable in some ways. So that was really my big disconnect. Whereas Eggars, I think it's a really good balance with this movie. And in this movie, it's more straight up horror. And I thought both were delivered better. I will say this, and probably no one would agree with this. Midsommar had potential. Midsommar, I think the theme of grief and moving on from one family to another, that all that stuff's great. And visually, Ari Aster's great. Like, oh my God, it's incredible visual. Incredible. Some of the best stuff you'll ever see from a visual standpoint. Very, very talented. I don't think he can write. What kills Midsommar is the characters. It's just a bunch of assholes. You stole my thesis paper. Oh, never mind. These two people just jumped off a cliff to their death. But I don't know. That movie, it has so much potential. It's really close, but it just collapses because he stinks at writing characters. He's not bad at themes, but he stinks with characters. So I don't know. I don't know if the Old English dialogue would have saved it. I think the tone. Maybe the script, if it was okay, if it was Robert Eggars writing the script of Hereditary, yeah, sign me up for sure. I think I might have liked The Witch if it didn't have the Old English dialogue. That's totally fair. That's absolutely fair. I think that's a good point, actually. I know quite a few people. I remember we saw in a theater, a big group of us, they were all like, I want to rewatch that movie with subtitles. And the same thing with this too. It was like, and I did, honestly, admittingly, I watched both of these upon show prep with the subtitles. So I did rewatch both of these just so I could not miss anything. But still, it's a lot. Great show, very enjoyable as always. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. But everybody, thank you so much for a great show here tonight. Have a great, safe, happy, healthy weekend. If you're going to check out Alien Romulus or want to let me know what some of your favorite Alien movies are, of course, you can please let me know when we talk about that next week. And everybody, cheers to a safe, happy, healthy weekend. And we will catch you next time only on the Graveyard. Too Sweet Peace. Good night, everybody. Cheers.